ghostly hitchhikers, haunted roads, goatmen, bird monsters. Oh my, Texas is full of creepy urban legends, but are any of them true? Well, let me tell them and you be the judge. When you hear Lake Worth monster, you're probably picturing a sea creature of some kind, but no, it's a Goatman. The creature is said to reside in Lake Worth, just outside of Fort Worth. It's described as this bizarre mix of a man and goat, but also has scales, so it's like a fishy man-goat. The legend dates back to July of 1969, when locals reported sightings of this half-human, half-goat creature perched on a cliff. A young couple who'd parked their car by the lake were the first ones to see the creature. They said it was massive, about 7 feet tall, and then more and more reported sightings came in, saying the goat creature would leap onto cars and hurl tires at people. Then in October of 69, a man named Alan Plaster snapped a photo of what he claimed to be the Lake Worth monster. Supposedly, this is it, and this photo started showing up in newspapers and magazines, which just fueled the stories even further until crowds were flocking to the lake at night. But whatever this thing was, if it really did exist, it was never found. The Lady of Whiterock Lake. I'm sure Dallas locals will have heard of this one. Whiterock Lake is about 20 minutes out of town, a nice getaway from the city, but there's a very spooky ghost story attached to it. As the legend goes, back in 1952, a tired couple found themselves driving home late one night after a party. The wife was dozing off when their car abruptly came to a halt. In the middle of the road was a woman in a torn white gown, drenched from head to toe. The husband offered her a ride, and she accepted. The wife was shocked at how icy the woman's touch was as she helped her into the back seat. They drove in silence until they reached the address that the woman gave them, an eerie, deserted house at the end of a desolate road. But when they turned to the back seat to speak to the woman, she was gone, leaving only a puddle of water behind. The couple was pretty freaked out, but figured maybe the woman had somehow gotten out of the car without them noticing, so they decided to knock on the door of the house. An old man answered the door, and when they described the woman to him, he told them the woman they had picked up was his daughter, but that she had drowned years ago in a boating accident. Ever since then, drivers have reported picking up a woman on the side of the road only for her to vanish before reaching her destination, always leaving a pool of water behind. The Frio River Valley is known for its own urban legend, the White Lady of Rio Frio. Maria Jimenez lived with her sister and brother-in-law, Gregorio, happily tending to her nieces and nephews on their ranch, but she dreamed of one day marrying and having children of her own. But Gregorio, despite being married, and married to Maria's sister no less, became infatuated with Maria. But when she rejected him, he flew into a rage and fatally shot her at her home later in the day. At her funeral, Maria's sister decided to dress her sister in her white wedding gown, as Maria never got to have a wedding of her own. It's said that Maria haunts the valley to this day, still wearing her sister's white wedding dress. But unlike a lot of tragic ghost tales like this, Maria isn't a vengeful spirit. She's just as caring and kind as she was in life. It's said she helps guide and comfort young people lost in the valley. Because she was unable to fulfill her own dream of starting a family, her spirit is said to care for the young people of her entire hometown. It's said you can spot her on misty nights, gracefully hovering over the water with her dress trailing behind her. The Lechuza is a creature from Mexican folklore, a large, part woman, part owl-like bird creature with dark magical powers. But in Robstown, Texas, in 1975, this creature became one of the biggest urban legends in the Lone Star State. Back in October of that year, the police started getting some unusual calls. People were reporting sightings of what they described as a monstrous bird. In Mexican folklore, the Lechuza is believed to be a witch who can take on the form of an owl, but she keeps her human face and hair. Depending on who you ask, she could be the size of a regular owl or as big as a person. But the reports didn't specifically mention La Lechuza at the time. That connection wasn't made until later. Instead, they described something that sounded just like a cross between a bird and a human. In Robstown, witnesses said it stood anywhere from 2 to 6 feet tall. with a bird body but a human-like face. There were also supposed sightings later on in Banquet and Alice. By January of the following year, folks in the valley were reporting encounters with a massive bird. In San Benito, 2 police officers even saw a bird with a wingspan that was apparently 10 to 12 feet long, flying over a lagoon. A radio station even put up a reward for capturing the big bird alive. And in Brownsville, a man named Alverico Gajardo told reporters he came face to face with a big bird right outside his door about 4 feet tall, saying it had a beak like a spear and eyes as big as silver dollars. He described his experience, saying, "That animal is not from this world. I was scared." Next, we have the Donkey Lady. A lot of scary lady urban legends in Texas. Any Texans in the audience want to explain why that is? The Donkey Lady is probably one of the most famous urban legends in the state, though. There are a few different versions of the tale, but they all center around a donkey-human hybrid. One version says a woman was badly burned, leaving her with hands that looked like hooves, and a face resembling a melted donkey. Awful. Another story goes that she was a woman who adored her pet donkey. When the donkey was taken away and mistreated by neighbors, they ended up drowning both the woman and her beloved animal, and now her spirit is said to linger near the Donkey Lady Bridge in San Antonio, Texas. This bridge, dating back to 1917, is where the spirit of the Donkey Lady is said to lurk to this very day. Back in the 60s, locals reported hearing eerie, donkey-like cries near the bridge, and the stories got passed on through the decades. This next story is actually kind of funny, I think. The Dancing Devil. If you're a San Antonio local, let me know if you've heard of this one, because it's pretty bizarre. On Halloween night in 1975, a man walked into El Camaroncito nightclub. It was an unforgettable night, but not in the way anyone was expecting or wanted. This mystery man was apparently an incredible dancer. The ladies were blown away by his incredible moves. They all wanted to dance with him. But at one point in the night, one of his dance partners happened to look down at the man's feet, and suddenly everyone heard this loud shriek. I picture the music stopping, everyone's just freezing, looking over. The woman had looked down at the man to see that his feet had transformed. Some said they looked like chicken feet, others described them more as hooves. The man then rushed into the bathroom and was never seen again. Some say he'd climbed out of the bathroom window, running off into the night, but there was also smoke left behind with a strange sulfur-like smell. The building is no longer a nightclub. It's changed hands a number of times, but the story of the Dancing Devil continued to be told, and staff at the building would say that there was a lingering sulfuric smell, especially in the men's bathroom. Next, we have the tale of the Fang Creature of Old Pearsall Road. Back in the 60s, a group of friends were driving home late one night along Old Pearsall Road. And by the way, if I'm pronouncing anything incorrectly, you let me know I already know you're gonna let me know in the comments. Anyway, they were driving along the road. They'd had a few drinks, this group of friends, and suddenly the driver swerved, convinced that he'd seen a little person in a white shirt and diaper with red stains around its mouth. After regaining their composure, the group continued on home. The next day, though, the driver just couldn't get the image of whatever that thing was out of his mind. Had he just imagined it? Was it an animal of some kind? Or even worse, was there actually a little youngster alone in the middle of the road that night that he almost ran over? He decided to drive back out there to take a look. But once he reached the spot, he realized he'd suffered a flat tire. He got out of the car to find 2 puncture marks on it. He changed the tire and then settled back into his car. He hadn't gotten a great sleep the night before, so he started to drift off, still pulled over on the side of the road. But then he woke up to a sharp pain on his neck. In complete horror, he realized the creature from the night before was now perched on his lap. Legend has it that the driver's sister later had a dream where he warned her never to venture down Old Pearsall Road. Bowden Road in Huntsville is sometimes referred to ominously as Demon's Road. There's a lot said to go on here. Seriously, be careful driving along this road alone at night, because it sounds like you're taking a real risk. For starters, you have a ghost boy boy with glowing red eyes that's said to ride around on a tricycle and drag you to hell. Some people will claim to spot mysterious red lights and orbs along the road. There's a faceless monster that's said to stalk people walking or driving along it. And then there's the graveyard. Martha Chapel Cemetery. One story goes that in 2001, a man from Houston decided to visit the Martha Chapel Cemetery with his buddy. They parked near the graveyard. The driver stepped out of the car. His friend appeared to be sleeping in the passenger seat and he didn't want to disturb him. So the man started walking through the cemetery. But he noticed something strange happening near one of the graves. The ground seemed to be moving. Suddenly, a hand reached up out of the ground and grabbed him on the ankle, but his friend ended up rushing over to help, and together they managed to break free and kick the hand back down into the ground. They ran back to the car, but suddenly the driver froze. His friend was actually still in the car. He'd been asleep the whole time. At least that's what it looked like. It wasn't until they were about a mile down Demon's Road that the driver realized his friend was actually dead. He'd suffered a heart attack while en route to the cemetery. We head to Corpus Christi, Texas now with the USS Lexington, a decommissioned World War II aircraft carrier that now operates as a museum, a supposedly very haunted museum. People will claim to spot shadow figures. There are also the full apparitions of two sailors, one that will help guide lost visitors back to the deck before disappearing, and one that likes to hang out in the engine room, explaining how the turbines work before vanishing into thin air. The museum official described one of the strangest things they'd ever experienced on the carrier involving their pen caps, saying, "I always use a ballpoint pen, and over the course of a few weeks, I lost about 6 pen caps off my desk. The day I lost the 6th pen cap, I turned over my office looking for them. My office was spotless by the time I was through. It wasn't until I returned to my office the next morning I found all 6 pen caps laying side by side right in front of my computer keyboard." Finally, we have another haunted Corpus Christi hotspot, Center Theater. Legend has it that the spirit of a woman employed as an usher at this theater still lingers to this day, bound to the theater after a terrible accident. According to the story, the woman died at the hands of her jealous lover as she exited the women's restroom on the upper floor near the mezzanine. She was fatally stabbed, her white uniform now stained in red. Visitors to the theater have reported strange things, especially in the area near the top of the stairs overlooking the seats. It's said that this is where the woman's ghost is most likely to be spotted. But she doesn't like people hanging around up there. Some are lucky to only feel an unexplained chill in the air. Others say they've been pushed, only to turn around and find that there's nobody else with them up there. At least no one living. So with all that said, all you Texas locals, have you experienced anything weird in regards to any of these stories? Have you heard any of these before? Let me know down in the comments. I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.